because everything we do has our values attached to it, especially in English classroom. We get to explore humanity as you do in history, the history classroom. But think about what things you did for assessment in high school and or what assessment you work towards with students on track. And the reason I'm asking you is just because of this here. And that's going to actually play a role in the way you construct this task for your students, which you're going to write a response to. Values affect everything we do. They're part of our subconscious and we naturally gravitate towards them. So this is really just a minute. Just think about which of these, critical literacy, visual literacy, objectivity, I'm very passionate about that. I'm sick and tired of journalists. It's all sensationalist garbage and it's very rarely objective or quality anymore. So I want my students to understand that that's really important. But see, that's me, that's my value system. And we still have to work within the Australian curriculum. So all these things are actually going to have quite a big influence on how you teach and how you construct your own assessment and how you even come to the assessment that the head of department has provided. You will get assessments where you go, I don't want to do that. And you'll be really angry. I've been there. But somehow you make it work for yourself. You can still bring your own values into the mix. So just have a quick 1 minute chat. I like critical literacy. Oh, I'm so passionate about that too. I don't want my students to be sheep and listening to everything and accepting everyone's or a particular position. I want them to think about it themselves. So go 1 minute, flesh it out. Or do you not really care? Or do you think they're all important?
I have to wonder how much of this can actually be done in other classes, not just in English. That's the way I look at it.
True, but you're doing a blog which has images.
Yeah, I just mean like for analytical writing.
Yeah.
That's stuff that you can do in a good science teacher should be able to teach the English style of that as well.
There's a lot of pressure to do that these days, is to integrate so that when students are doing a history essay, they're doing an essay in English, so that they're getting a lot of repetition, they're more likely to be successful. Some people love teaching persuasive writing, speeches. Some people love teaching the narrative, huffing and going. These are the sort of things that we bring to the table.
Creative writing.
Yeah, see?
I remember in year 12 again, I had to read, I don't know how it works after Robert's final year 12 assessment piece, they have to do another essay, analytical. They've done 3 this year. And he's got to do one persuasive, which is what he's good at. And I remember when I was in year 12, they made us do the one that we did the worst in. Do you know what I mean? So I remember I didn't do very well in short story, so my teacher made me do another short story for my last. But everyone did a different thing.
Oh, was that the boost up marks? Because that's what we used to do 4 main assessments, and the 5th assessment was always a boost up mark.
And everyone always knew when you got to year 12, the one you didn't do very well was when they made you do 10 4.
You should be doing what you're stronger in.
Our very last one was you got to choose any topic you wanted and basically devise your own assignment.
Yeah.
So I wrote a short story on a topic that I really
Because I remember I wanted to do a persuasive speech because I was like, I'll get good marks for that. But my teacher made me do a creative writing.
And that, Michelle, an ideological sentiment. That's saying that what you're not good at, you need to actually improve upon, which is different to you do what you're best at to get the best results. So there's ideology underpinning that particular decision.
See, that's why we got asked for boost up marks, because they apparently, if we had 2 of the assessment pieces, they could take the best of parts of both of those assessment pieces.
I'm not hearing any of that.
This was 7 years ago.
Yeah. Okay, and also, of course, this is going to play a part in how you engage in the subject of English too. What do you like? What do you not like? Are you only popular culture or are you only canon? I've worked with teachers who are diametrically opposed. Shakespeare's irrelevant. Shakespeare's the best thing ever. So just be mindful of that too. Now, where do you start? You go to these documents. Go to ACARA and you go to We all feel like that sometimes. What's that? Everything's under control, smooth.
I'm a cop.
This one? Or this one?
Oh no, I'm the red car.
The red car, yeah.
If the monkey was driving the red car, that would
Just the car.
This is our reality, and as teachers we'll bounce backwards and forwards all the time. But if we know what we're doing, because we've done this awesome unit at QUT. So, starting point, ACARA says this. Now, hopefully you're quite familiar with these now. So this is the Year 8 Achievement Standards. And it's split into receptive modes and productive modes, which do a lot of teachers' heads in. Receptive mode is really about responding to a text. How do you respond? Productive mode is about doing something with the text. But there is overlap between them. So they are artificial constructions really that someone has sat down and made up for us to help us mark student work and to determine our teaching and learning. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to give you a moment to read the receptive modes and productive modes for Year 8. I'm going to give you 2 tasks. Look at what is actually required in here. And look at these 2 tasks and tell me, and this comes down to the balance and range of texts that schools are working with. So there's a task, one on either side. Actually, I'll keep that one. You can just have a look around. Tell me if those 2 tasks combined actually look at those 2 tasks and see if they actually cover, combined, all that is required according to the Australian curriculum. And this is also showing you some ways that schools have devised their assessment. Because they're quite different. Thoughts?
I feel like, to me, I feel like they're both productive modes. Like there is while you have to read the story to understand the characters, it's not really the main part of the assessment piece. The main part of the assessment piece is to, like in the case of the first one, the nice clear one, it's all about organising a speech, and then the second one is all about writing a story. It's not, there's nothing out there about listening or reading or viewing anything to then make creation.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you said that because in every task there's an element of receptive in there and there's an element of productive, so they're not exclusive to one another. And I wouldn't have even thought to say that, but your very first comment. It's really interesting listening to the way people come at these documents because these are working together. Because in the English classroom they're always responding to texts in some way, shape and form, but they might be doing more, like you say, they might be explaining more rather than creating more.
So it's a quick question. So with English assessments, because on my prep I didn't get to teach any English classes and I only got to observe one. So I did a lot of dance stuff, and with the dance they have making and responding. So their assessments are usually either or either. In English they're always going to be combined.
Most of the time. I would say, honestly, you see a lot more productive than, the receptive is embedded within the productive. How can you actually explain anything if you haven't responded first to the text? So it's implicit, it's in there, and you have to decide as a school which one you're going to explicitly assess at any given point.
You don't assess both of them
You do,
at the same time.
Yep, absolutely.
Or which is your main focus? So if in the case of these, the main focus is on the productive mode at the end. At the start, it's the receptive mode that you have to understand everything to then make productive mode work.
Well, let's actually unpack that statement. But before we do,
I was wondering if I could talk about something, like an example I have from prac.
Yeah.
The English essay that they were working on with me, my students were working on, was comparing 2 songs.
Yes.
This Is Me versus Scars Too Beautiful. So they had a booklet they had to complete, which was all about analysing these songs and listening to the songs. So in that sense, we've got clear evidence of like listening and that sort of thing, because we would be playing it for them and they'd be writing down notes as they were.
But also do this.
They're also, and then they had to produce an essay that was a comparison between the songs using all these things they'd sort of pulled out from, you know, receiving the information about the songs through listening and all that to them.
So the golden rule is at the end of the year, you have to have assessed every single student on every single standards elaboration. It's up to you how you divvy them up in each of the tasks. You just have to make sure you've done an audit and they're all ticked off. And these are working together, and that's a really good example.
So that would be ticking off like listening and reading.
Well, it's looking at
or listening.
understanding how the selection of text structures is influenced by the
Yeah.
selection of language
Yeah.
mode, and how this varies for different purposes. So one song the student might say uses all these lovey-dovey, soft-sounding syllables to create a harmonious, loving product that makes people feel,
Then you have scars.
And that's explain how language features and whatever.
and it's doing that too. So you can see how that
Yeah.
in that example you're assessing both, but which ones do you put in standards elaborations? Well, you make that decision. You just have to make sure that across the year you've done both. So, in short, those two tasks do not tick all the boxes here though, because one's a speech and one's a narrative. And in both cases, they're not doing any of this. Explain the effectiveness of language choices. I have not read one story where the writer, the author says, oh, and I just used a wonderful metaphor.
Oh, so is that why then some teachers these days get them to do a key and then they have to go through and highlight the language features that they found, or that they use maybe in
To justify and
Right,
explain
okay.
why
They
they
do a
use
little annotation of their own work.
often a reflection or an artist statement or something like that. It's bringing in that particular standard.
Unless you have a character in the story that does explicitly say all the time, oh, I just used a metaphor. That's just to be really annoying.
That would be really annoying.
So gonna be a character now.
So, yeah, that was just to point out, that's your starting point. So at the end of the year, make sure you've mapped, audited it all. But it's also to point out the importance of the achievement standards. Because if at your school you're doing speeches and narratives and monologues, and you're not ever doing any analysis, you're not going to be hitting explaining the effectiveness of language choices. And you have to. Okay? ACARA demands that. Yes.
So when you're creating an assessment item, essentially you need to be meeting both of those criteria that you give.
Yeah. But you won't assess all the standards elaborations in every assessment task. And there are really good examples on the QCAA website, and I've put two on Edmodo. One of them is Unlocking the Power of Poetry, and you can see, I can't remember how many standards elaborations there are, let's say there are 12. There are only like 6, I think, on the actual standards elaborations. So you make them context specific and assignment specific by getting rid of those that do not apply.
I think I just want it really clear in my head what these standard elaborations sort of
Well,
are.
you will hold that thought. We are going right in there.
Okay.
Never fear. So this is a screen grab of QCAA, who has done a lot of work in bringing all the ACARA, which is huge, like it's a mega beast, all this stuff, and it's dropped them into these PDF documents for each year level. And that's what we're going to be working with today, and that's what you'll be working with. You'll be working with the year 9, I'm working with the year 8 today, because I don't work with students on exactly the same content that they're going to be assessed on, because you need to transfer the knowledge to a new scenario. That's true learning. So QCAA have given us this particular document, and again it's on Edmodo, and it's also on Blackboard. Gives you a little bit of a statement about the purpose. It's helping us. It talks about the receptive and the productive mode, and it talks about the C standard. Also goes into all this really awesome stuff. But we're going to move on because we have to dive into the cognition's standards elaborations. I'm not going to give you 2 minutes, I'll give you a minute. which cognitive verbs, and this is what they are: recognise, recall, clarify, define, demonstrate, compare, apply, appreciate, appraise, determine, analyse, evaluate. Should students be demonstrated English in Year 8? Which ones should we be assessing? Everything. So they should appreciate, argue, they should comment on, construct, decide, design, devise, discriminate, and there are some more there as well. Sketch, use, experiment or test.
How are you going to prove that every single student is hitting every single one of those cognitive verbs in grade 9?
Well, it's a school's responsibility.
These are the word we use for our learning intentions. Where did you get that from?
We just had an epiphany. Do you want to say that loudly to everyone?
No, but I've been looking for the perfect verbs
Yeah,
when I gave my
verbs
learning
to use.
intentions, and I
Yeah.
just found a whole list for them.
Yeah,
You
we're just going
did?
to find out where it is.
Because I'm like, what do I really want them to do? Are they really analysing? I don't know. I'll put that down because I can't think of anything else for now.
Oh, no. No, it's a conscious,
Okay.
intelligent decision.
Because that's what I'm a bit, because like with these, like yes, the student might be appreciating something when they're, you know, writing it, but these you've got to like be really specific and tailored when you're writing those learning intentions.
Yeah.
So then you've got like 50 here and you need to prove that every student is doing all
So
of them.
where are you going to go to get the cognition that you need?
We
Where
can
are you
see
going to
now.
go?
Well, see before, but we didn't really talk about this now because we only talked about like Maslow, not Maslow,
Marlowe.
Mazzano and Bloom. So that's kind of where these cognitive verb ideas were coming from, and there's you know, like
Evaluate,
evaluating,
analyse.
analysing.
But where are you going to go?
But this is
Get-
better.
I don't know.
QCA, but you need to be a teacher to access it.
No, you don't. This is a general website. All this stuff.
I'm just trying to get into cognitive verbs.
I will show you. I will show you. Oh, this stuff. This is this document's a bit special.
Yeah.
But
That's what I want.
yeah, in English we don't assess all those things. We might do them in the classroom, but we're not assessing them. So remember, you don't assess everything you teach.
Okay, so
So in your learning intentions, what you do is you say, well, what am I going to actually be assessing these students on? The next step is, well, how do I know the answer to that? It's ACARA and QCAA, and we're going to do stuff on that right now. So this is just, so hold that thought and hold that thought, because we're coming back to it in a roundabout way. Qualifiers. These are in our standards elaborations. So a cognition is a skill, it's the verb, what students actually have to do. The qualifier is how well they actually do it. This is where you get those really interesting arguments and debates in the staff room about whether it's awesome or not awesome. How well should students be demonstrating the cognitions? How about this one is good? Good effort. How about that one? Radical. Radical use of figurative language. Should we have that in our standards elaborations? Excellent.
Yeah.
In the main. That's actually in there. In some syllabuses in the senior space.
In the main one.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Awesome. Fragmented. Yep. It's there. Insightful. That's there. Fragmented gives you a very clear image of what you're talking about, doesn't it? It actually conjures up an image in your head when you see it. Discerning.
oh, I hate that one.
Yeah.
So it's a thing
That was such a problem for me on Prague.
That's if you want to aim.
I basically just compared it. If it was better than what I thought it was for B, then the discerning must be it. My teacher thought my marking was great.
What does it mean? What does discerning mean?
No idea. Better
Lock
than
it
B
in.
level.
Made with thoughtful choice. Done with thoughtful choice. That's what discerning means. Yes.
I had a conversation with a boy in my
Is this a discerning essay?
As long as it's better than
Like,
B.
is it more
and he
than
had
a
his criteria marking sheet with him at the same time.
Yeah.
The teacher said, it's good, Shirley, you go through your marking and make sure you've hit it all. And he put his hand up, so I walked over to him and he said, what does discerning mean?
Yeah, good on
So I said the same thing as you just said, you know, making choices with thought. And he goes, oh yeah, I think I've really done that. I really thought about why I put it here. but then going through his essay, it was like a new standard. So I feel like for discerning, they have a different idea of what doing something with a thoughtful purpose is.
Yeah, so it's got to be discerning for the purpose.
Yeah.
Everything in English is about purpose. And what you need to do then is you need to get an A standard, de-identify, and say this is actually what discerning looks like, sounds like, feels like. And what about effective? So, some of these are more easily defined than others, or we grasp them more readily than others. Thorough is there as well. So they are the cognitions. Some of them are not. Some of them are nonsense.
Right, the qualifiers.
Qualifiers, sorry, qualifiers, thank you for that. We're now going to have a look at what QCAA and ACARA say. But first I'm going to give you a real life sample of standards elaborations that have been used in a school.
Lisa, can I just confirm, will you put most of this stuff up in Blackboard?
Some of it I can't put up because it's real school stuff. In fact, I'm going to have to take that away.
All the stuff that you sort of, like the sample template.
Yes.
Those
Everything you
cognition
should-
things.
Everything you need, you should be able to get. If not, make sure you get in touch with me and let me know.
The cognitive verb things are a bit difficult to get through.
So, what you need to do is highlight the cognitions and the qualifiers in different colours. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a huge range of highlighters. I have yellow.
We've got some pens on the desk.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Left over from something or other.
So do this as quickly as you can because we need to move on.
Is there any more? Are there any more of those?
There's a whole bunch.
No, pens.
Oh yeah, there's heaps of them. Sorry, didn't realise that. Come on, let's move. Qualifiers and cognitions.
Sorry.
That's all right. Sorry. So what this is basically doing is checking what you've just learned and now understand. So this is a recall kind of activity. Can you identify the cognitions and the qualifiers? Cognition is what the student is doing. Yeah, so qualifiers are discerning or effective. Cognitions are analyse, evaluate, identify, sequence, organise.
So what's the terminology?
Cognitions and qualifiers. Highlight them in different colours.
Would you highlight explanation even though it's
Yep.
not a verb?
Absolutely. Yep. So whether it's a noun or a verb, if the students are going to be demonstrating it, you're going to be marking according to them to whether they've done it or not.